Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. Coming up a little bit later in the show, we'll hear a performance from the Grafton band Sneaky Wild Oats. But first, joining us now is not a rookie to Prairie Pulse. It is a returning author, Mark DeSalle. Mark, thanks so much for joining us today. You're here to talk about your new book called Close Encounters of the Fargo Kind. I tell you what, interesting. We're going to talk about it, and let's get started with first. Tell the folks a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're originally from.
Well, I'm from Arizona. I was born in California, lived in Arizona and California all my life.
Okay.
And
So how'd you end up in Fargo?
well, our kids were getting close to their teenage years. We had visited here a couple of times, so we knew it was like a different planet, which is why I named the book Close Encounters of the Fargo Kind. But a great place for kids to become young adults. And we had the opportunity to come up here, and we came in a flash.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about, after the success of your first book, How Fargo of You, of course, now you've got a second book out. Tell us what this one's about.
Well, in How Fargo of You, which was basically a memoir of our first 5 years here, and what it's like to move here when you've never lived in this region before. At the end of How Fargo of You, I said, I really think this deserves to have a lot of other people's voices, not just mine. And so over the next couple of years, people just sent me hundreds of stories of the kind of behavior that this region is legitimately and rightly kind of well known for. Not as well known as it ought to be. But so Close Encounters of the Fargo Kind, basically, I think it has about 50 stories from other people, 50 or 60 stories from other people. And then I've woven them together with my stories. And so that's basically, it's basically the same kind of stories that were in How Fargo of You, but from lots of people in the region as far away as Mayville and Bismarck and the lakes area of Minnesota.
Okay. Let's talk about the reaction to the first book. You know, it's been out now long enough, and of course, I know you got good response, but how do you feel the reaction was with that first book?
Well, it was what I had hoped it would be. It's now the best-selling book about North Dakota of the 21st century. It's sold over 20,000 copies. And the last book about North Dakota to sell more than that was Come Hell and High Water, which was the 1997 book that the Grand Forks Herald wrote about the Great Flood and Fire that year. So, so it was tremendous response, and I'm very gratified. It didn't surprise me, I'll be honest. As I started to write it, or even before I started to write it, I had recognized that Fargo had a PR problem. And the PR problem was the movie, which is a great movie, but it's called Fargo, and it starts out with big red letters saying this is a true story, which is a big leg pull, as the Coen brothers later admitted. And so people get the idea that this is some kind of people in other areas get the idea this is some kind of a legitimate representation of the region, which of course it's a complete mythological creation of the Coen brothers' minds. They were inspired by a murder in Connecticut in 1987, where a woman was trying to run her dead husband's body, who she'd killed, through a wood chipper, and that's what inspired that movie. It's from a different part of the world. And so people around here had no ready means to communicate what life was really like in Fargo. And it irritated them. I had a gentleman tell me, who owns his own marketing company and does work all around the world, who lives here in Fargo. He told me that he had tremendous difficulty explaining to these executives that he did work for around the world why he still lived in Fargo. And when he told me that, and I knew he knew how to communicate. He has a very successful international marketing firm, and his name's Ken Promisberger. And when he told me that, I realized, you know, I've got to tell my story, because I'm an outsider. I moved here, and I got to see what it was like from an outsider's point of view living here. And, you know, rather like that book from 15, 20 years ago called A Year in Provence, from an American who had moved to southern France and lived in Provence for a year. I thought, this will be really interesting, and it'll give the locals a way to communicate what life is really like in Fargo. And that's precisely what it did. And but Close Encounters of the Fargo Kind, I have a second intention, which is to let the rest of the country know that it's actually humanly possible to live this way in the 21st century in a high-tech environment, a high-tech community. And so that's the intention for this new book, is to actually go out beyond Fargo in a bigger way than how Fargoview did.
So what's the reaction been so far to the new book?
It's been really excellent. It's taken off similarly to the way how Fargoview took off. And I was able to, I actually, with this book, to finance a larger printing, because I was always running out of books with how Fargoview before Christmas. We'd run out December 15th, December 20th, everybody'd be out of books. So I put a website up for this and actually sold books before I ever went to press. And I was able to sell about $12,000 worth of books before I went to press, and that enabled me to do a larger print run. So we actually made it through to Christmas this year. So that was a good thing.
Okay. Well, now the new book, you've got Close Encounters of the Fargo Kind. It of course says true stories from a kind, happy little planet in America. But it's broken down into 4 parts here.
Right.
Let's take them one at a time.
Sure.
On the back of your book, of course, you call it Book 1, Anonymous Kindness. What's that about?
Right. Well, I actually spoke about anonymous kindness in how Fargoview, but when I collected these hundreds of stories the last few years, the biggest category of stories that I got was anonymous kindness. And that's where somebody does something outrageously helpful for you, but they get away without giving you their name, and sometimes you don't even see their face. And that happens a lot around here. It's kind of a local pastime. It's a local hobby. See if you can do this. And certainly there's recent examples in the news. There's been a spate of these the last month or so. I have a whole 100 pages of them in here. But just recently, you remember Erica, can't think of her last name, but she picked up $2,800 that she found in the parking lot at the McDonald's in Moorhead and took it to the police station, and this got some press. And then within 2 days, a gentleman walks into WDAY with an envelope full of $2,800 in $1 bills and gives them to Kevin Wallivand, the reporter there, and says, "Would you give these to Erica at that event you're going to tonight?" And we have no idea who this gentleman is. And that happens, I could tell you 5 stories that were in the news in the last month like that.
Exactly, and that gentleman, I think, was going to buy a truck and had taken the money out. I mean, I remember the story, absolutely.
Right, right. So these things happen a lot around here, and so that's why that's the first section in the book, is a whole lot of stories from a whole lot of people that are all fairly recent of that kind of thing being done for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. So book number 2 you've got called The Fargo Way. Of course, it says Remarkable Encounters of the Fargo Business,
right.
Way of Business.
Right. Well, yeah, where I come from, California and Arizona, and certainly when I lived in LA for about 10 years, and there you get a mix of international business too. So I met lots of New Yorkers, lots of Russians who'd escaped from the Soviet Union at that time, and a lot of people doing business in this sort of what's considered to be the modern way of doing business, which is kind of win-lose. It's kind of like, well, I'm going to try to get more from you than maybe we really want to admit to. And when you come to Fargo, it's just the opposite. It seems like the normal way to run a business around here is people try to do more for you than you expect. People try to, and sometimes to an outrageous extent, just go way over the top. And what everybody's interested in is that lifelong relationship. And so they want to stun you with how much they can do for you that first time you go into pay for something with them. And if they can do that, they figure then maybe you'll be a customer for life. But they'll continue to try to stun you every time you go do some business there. And that seems to be the normal way of business in this region.
Of course, book number 3, you call it here, or section 3 is called 0 Degrees of Separation. Have to do with the 6 degrees of separation that we talk about?
Right, but we strive for 0 degrees in this region. And that's something I didn't even understand when I wrote How Far Go a View. I mean, I'd seen little bits and pieces of it, but I hadn't put it together. When I really started putting it together was about my 5th or 6th book signing, and there was a line, and the conversation was always the same in that line between people who didn't know each other. Oh, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Carrington. Oh, I'm from Cooperstown. Do you know the Rileys? Oh, yeah, I went to high school with John Riley. Oh, yeah, well, his sister, Mary, she used to go out with my best friend, Sam, you know. That's the kind of conversation you'd hear all the time. And it started to come together for me then, and then I talked to this professor, actually he's a dean up at Mayville State University, and he showed me a photograph of a baseball team from about 1940, and it was his dad and all of his dad's brothers. The 9 of them comprised this team, and he started telling me who all their kids were, where they all moved to in this region, and the towns they were in, and I realized he had this immense map of this whole region of Dakota and Minnesota, where all these people had gone, and I call it a 5-dimensional map. It's a space, time, family, friends, and community continuum map. And people around here naturally build these maps all the time, and it's peculiar to this area. I've talked to a lot of people who come from not too far away, Wyoming, Montana, Illinois, where this does not happen. They say, well, no, I grew up in the country, but you know, somebody who's a mile away, that's their business. But when you move here, everybody gets to know everybody. And it has to do with the agrarian background. It has to do with winter, so that we have this culture of we must take care of each other just to survive. And what I like to call the annual crisis of winter, which I think does us a tremendous amount of good around here, reinforces all these good virtues on an annual basis. And I've come to the belief that this 0 degrees of separation that's kind of a normal thing that everybody gets used to doing around here has a lot to do with why we have consistently one of the lowest crime rates in the world, not just the United States, consistently one of the highest graduation rates in the world, not just the United States. Consistently, our statistics are stunning, lowest unemployment rates. It's because when you walk out into the street in Fargo, this is the key difference, and I didn't even figure this out till after I'd written this book, and I was being interviewed by a really bright forum reporter by the name of Eric. And he got me to kind of define what really is different about Fargo. Doesn't everybody want to brag about their town? And I said, yeah, but what's different is when you live in California, Arizona, these other places I've lived, there's good people, lots of good people. But when you go out in public, you're kind of watching your back. You're kind of walking out into, you know, the open jungle, and you're going to have to watch what's going on. Here, when I walk down the street in Fargo, and this is true from the time we'd been here a couple of months, I felt like I was walking into an extended family. I knew that everybody had my back that I didn't know that was walking by me on the street. And that's a very true feeling that you get here. And so this 0 degrees of separation, I think, has a lot to do with explaining what's going on with this region that brings all these outrageous statistics and the great feeling of community that you get here.
Well, you sort of alluded to it, and part 4 here is called True Fargo Crime. Now, it talks about it being hilarious and enlightening part of that part of the story. How did you go about that?
Well, that was actually the first part of the book that I wrote. And the reason why was I had this hunch. I'd had it for a year or two. I said to my wife a couple of years ago, I said to Charlene, I said, you know, I have this suspicion that most of the murders that we've heard about since we moved here, which is not many, because, you know, one murder and you hear about it for a whole year, and that's how you get to know these murders really well, is because it's big news around here. But I said most of these murders that have happened since we've been here were committed by somebody who had not yet lived here a full year. And I want to look into that. And so I look into it, and it's actually a kind of an odd part of the book in that it's not just a collection of stories. I did get some crime stories sent to me, which are very, believe me, the first thing I ever knew about Fargo when we moved here is we watched the news that first night, not when we moved here, when we visited here. We watched the news that first night, and the lead story was they had caught some high school kids who had done some graffiti 3 or 4 nights before on the West Fargo gym, and they tracked them down. Well, where I come from, nobody worries about graffiti. They're worried about the murders they haven't solved. And it was just hysterical to us that this was the lead crime story, was they had tracked these kids down and found out who did it, and now they were going to have to do a bunch of community service after they'd repainted the side of the gym and gotten it looking the way it used to. So crime can be very funny around here, and there's a lot of funny crime stories in there that I was sent. But the main thrust of that section was, I bring you along with me as I investigate whether or not most of the murders that have occurred in this century since the year 2000 were committed by somebody who had not yet lived here a full year. And I'm not going to give the answer away. That's the second to last story in the book. But I didn't know what the answer was going to be as I wrote that. I found that as I found out the answer, I wrote the last part of that section, and that's what True Fargo Crime is all about.
Okay. You made the comment earlier that people sent you hundreds of stories, but how did you find these people, or did they find you?
They found me.
I mean, all of them, or did
in How Fargo of You, I said, let's do this again at the end of the book. And I said, if you've got a story, just send it to me at this email address. And I gave an email address in there, and which was the email address is stories@howfargo.com. And so that was, but also I was always doing book events all the time. I was doing book signings and book readings around town, and I'd get inundated afterwards with people telling me stories. And the amazing part of it, part of what inspired this book was most of the stories I'd hear had just happened in the last week or 2 or 3, and I started realizing, okay, this happens. By my calculation, we probably have about what I would call 1 million close encounters of the Fargo kind every year within a 10-mile radius of where you and I are sitting right now. And that's a pretty simple calculation. Before I wrote this book, so when I was completely anonymous here and a newcomer, I'd have 5 or 6 of these things happen easily every year. Well, if you multiply that by the population of 200,000, then you end up with over 1 million of these happening every year. And I don't think that's a bad estimate. And even if that estimate is double what it is, what the reality is, then you're still talking over 500,000 of these incidents occurring in this small region on an annual basis. That means a couple, 2,000, 3,000 every day. And that's, I know you're going to ask me a question about, do I have anything in mind for my next book? That's what's inspired the idea for my next book. My next book is going to be called One Weekend in Fargo. And I'm going out with a video crew for 10 hours a day for 3 days. We're going to start on a Friday because I want it when businesses are open. And all I'm going to do is run around with a microphone and say, okay, what's the wildest Fargo thing that's happened to you in the last year? And then after I get that answer, it'll be, and what's the worst thing that's happened to you in Fargo in the last year? Because I guarantee you most of those answers are going to be pretty funny to most people living in other parts of the United States. And that will be, after 30 hours of that, will be way more than enough for my next book, which will just be called One Weekend in Fargo. And I wanted to do that because people could still think I'm cherry picking these stories. I'm not. I'm not. They're everywhere. And I realized by doing it that way, it'll make it really plain and obvious to people that, okay, life really is different up there, and not in the mythological way that the movie paints it. It's different in a way that I think most people in the United States have no idea that we can live like this in the 21st century, and Fargo's proof.
Do you worry about the rapid growth of Fargo, West
I do.
Fargo, kind of ruining a good thing?
Sure, I do, and I put a lot of warnings in here right up front. Don't just move to Fargo and think everything's going to be fine. About a year ago, a lady who runs a local charity for homeless kids told me the story of a guy from your part of the country He had a job, and he'd read enough about Fargo. Thank goodness none of it was my stuff that encouraged him to move here, but he'd read enough about Fargo. He decided, you know, it was the promised land, and he just left his job and moved his family here, and they ended up in the homeless shelter here this last winter. And Fargo's not a good place to be homeless, especially in the winter. And so, yeah, I do worry if the flow is too rapid, people that move here won't have a chance to catch on to the existing culture and become a part of it and assimilate. And instead, they'll just kind of dilute it and inundate it. And so I hope we keep our growth at a slow enough pace that the majority of people who come here catch on to how life is conducted here, as opposed to not being able to do that.
Well, Mark, I wish we had more time. I'd like to hear more stories. But if people want to find out more information or get a copy of your book, where's the best place to go, who to contact?
Every place that sells books in the Fargo region has this book currently. How Fargo View is ebook only at this time. You get it on Amazon.
All right. Mark, we're out of time. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much, John.
Stay tuned for more. Peggy and John Bartunik live in Grafton, North Dakota, and have a long history in music education and performance. They started the Sneaky Wild Oats Band because of their love for jazz. Today, they play throughout North Dakota and Minnesota. So sit back and enjoy the smooth jazz sounds of Sneaky Wild Oats.
There will be many other nights like this, and I'll be standing here with someone new. There will be other songs to sing, another fall, another spring, but there will never be another you. There may be other lips that I may kiss, but they won't thrill me like yours used to do. Yes, I may dream a million dreams, but how can they come true if there will never ever be another you? Other nights like this, and I'll be standing here with someone new. There will be other songs to sing, another fall, another spring, but there will never be another you. There will be other lips that I may kiss, but they won't thrill me like yours used to do. Yes, I may dream a million dreams, but how can they come true if there will never ever be, no, there will never ever be, no, there will never ever be another you.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Pulse for this week, and as always, thanks for watching.
Funded by the North Dakota Council on the Arts and by the members of Prairie Public.